It's fair to say that Cody Rhodes' first 12 months back in WWE have already surpassed anything he did in his previous 9-year stint. He's already main evented WrestleMania and instantly became the company's de facto #1 babyface. Much of it had to do with timing, but there was no doubt that when Cody Rhodes returned to WWE after 6 years, he was ready for the big time. But he isn't the first superstar who has left WWE, gotten bigger and better, and returned to huge success, and he likely won't be the last. Even superstars like Jinder Mahal came back and became world champion, but because he hasn't gotten a push in 6 years, we won't count him on this list. But these 7 superstars deserve a mention for how much better their second run in WWE turned out to be. One name that's probably already come to mind is Drew McIntyre. The Scottish Warrior was personally declared by Vince McMahon as a future world champion as far back as 2009. Vince McMahon's prediction came true, but he probably didn't expect it to take 11 years for that prophecy to come true. McIntyre suffered a slide down from the card like a few have before and went from being a future world champ to a corny enhancement talent as a part of 3MB. When he was released by WWE in 2014, he realized it was a blessing in disguise and rapidly built his way up in the independent scene and became a household name in Impact Wrestling, winning the World Championship. Although his run with Impact lasted just 2 years, it opened the door for a WWE return, and his 3 years away was enough to turn him into an established star. When he returned to the main roster in 2018, there was little doubt that he was ready, and 2 years later he won the Royal Rumble and became WWE Champ. Although it's a shame that he has yet to have a world title reign in front of a live audience, not enough credit is given for how he carried WWE for half of the pandemic era. Bobby Lashley also upped his game in the Thunderdome era, and that was when he became WWE Champion. For Lashley, he too was handpicked for the main event spot by Vince McMahon, and all signs led to him being a future WWE Champion. But ultimately, he decided that it was time for him to leave WWE and asked for his release in 2008. Although it was reported to be a backstage issue, as well as disagreements about money, the Almighty later came out and revealed why he actually left. He said, quote, "I was making a tremendous amount of money then. It was an opportunity for me to go and fight and legitimize my character a little bit. So I fought for 8 years under Coker and Bellator and Strikeforce and everything else, and now coming back I take all that with me to kinda legitimize my character a little bit." End quote. Lashley spent an entire decade away from WWE, having success in Impact Wrestling, as well as accumulating an impressive 15-2 record in MMA. It's safe to say that his gamble paid off. Now, Bobby Lashley had a choice when it came to his WWE exit, but Eddie Guerrero didn't have that same option. After jumping ship from WCW with his fellow Radicals members, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn, his first WWE run came to a crashing halt after he got arrested for drunk driving. He had a memorable romantic storyline with Chyna, but beyond that, there wasn't too much accomplished in his 1-year stint. His second run, however, was a completely different story. It's hard to believe that it only lasted for 3 years because that's how big his impact was. It didn't take long for him to win the hearts of the WWE Universe, and by 2004, he defeated Brock Lesnar to become the WWE Champion. The 3.5 years that he was with the WWE saw him have an organic rise to the top, and beyond his world title win, he was constantly involved in important stories and became the strongest character in the company. But perhaps what was most impressive about the 2001-2002 period was his dedication to recovery and fight to win his family back. It's still one of the most inspirational comebacks in WWE history. Shawn Michaels also returned to WWE as a better man in 2002. If you weren't aware, HBK was known to be quite the diva back in his early WWE days. He was accused of being a notorious bully and politicker, reportedly making Vince McMahon change the finish to a match where the British Bulldog was supposed to beat him in front of his family. Instead, Shawn Michaels wound up beating him while his sister, who had cancer, was present in the audience. That was only one of many stories that made him one of the most difficult stars to work with, but a spinal cord injury that he suffered in 1998 against The Undertaker forced him to hang up his boots and take an on-screen role as commissioner instead. Ultimately, the 4 years away saw him turn to God as he became a born-again Christian and a better human being overall. He won the World Heavyweight Championship only a few months after his return in 2002, but what was incredible about his second run was that he refused to become a world champion again. Instead, his run was all about elevating other superstars, and he became the best wrestler in the world again, only this time without all the attitude. The run lasted a satisfying 8 years, where he stole the show every single time. While many legends have ruined their legacy by staying on too long, Michaels retired exactly at the right time and redeemed himself in a way that nobody expected. Redemption was everything for Goldberg when he came back to WWE in 2016. He only had a 1-year run in the WWE in 2003, and the company successfully sabotaged the legacy that he built in WCW. In WCW, he was a destroyer, a Mike Tyson of sorts. He said it himself. Nobody paid to see him have long technical matches. They paid to see him destroy superstars. WCW played perfectly to his strengths on his road to the top, and that's why he became the megastar that he did. It only took a few months for Linda McMahon, the CEO of WWE at the time, to publicly state in a shareholders meeting that Goldberg's run was a disappointment. This obviously bothered Goldberg, and while he brushed off the idea that WWE was sabotaging his career, he quickly found it to be true. He may have won the World Heavyweight Championship, but by then, it was too late to recover the damage that was done. He didn't like the direction that WWE was going in, and all the backstage issues didn't help either. Goldberg decided not to renew his deal with WWE, and it ended in a disgraceful exit in his WrestleMania 20 match against Brock Lesnar, the infamous bout where Madison Square Garden booed both the men out of the building. For years, Goldberg insisted that he would never compete for Vince McMahon again, but when he was suddenly announced as a playable character in WWE 2K17, the wheels were in motion for his return. In October of 2016, he came back to a hero's welcome to set up a rematch against Brock Lesnar and wound it up squashing him in 26 seconds. The shock factor ultimately culminated in a story where Lesnar defeated Goldberg to end the story, but it was a massive success. Goldberg proved to be a huge draw for WWE and went on to have a string of matches through the years where WWE handled him a lot better creatively. Sure, there were huge questionable moments, such as his match against The Undertaker in 2019, his Universal title win over The Fiend in 2020, and a few more, but overall, it's clear that he has had a far better time in WWE during his second run. Bryan Danielson also had a far better time his second run with WWE, but not at first. Because of the minimal time between his release and the return in 2010, we're going to count it as one single run. But his actual first run in WWE happened back in 2000 when he signed a developmental contract. He was released after only 1.5 years, but he later revealed that he was close to being called up to the main roster. Bryan said that he was going to be an important part of the cruiserweight division, but thankfully it didn't work out, opening the door for him to go to Japan to refine his skills. He actually made a series of non-contracted appearances for WWE in 2002 and 2003, even facing John Cena in Velocity. But when he returned to WWE as a part of the NXT game show in 2010, he was an entirely different wrestler. He came back as one of the best in-ring performers in the world and quickly drew comparisons to Shawn Michaels. Although he was released immediately after he made his main roster debut when he choked announcer Justin Roberts with a necktie, he was quickly brought back on board and got a huge push. We know that the peak of his career came in 2014, but let's not forget that he became the World Heavyweight Champion back in 2011, well before his underdog story began. His stint was filled with its ups and downs, but he managed to establish himself as a main event talent and had a series of incredible stories and rivalries, even reportedly managing to gain creative control over his character, something that Vince McMahon wouldn't just give out. He left on his own terms, and whether he returns to WWE or not, he will eventually have his place in the Hall of Fame. Brock Lesnar also left WWE on his own terms in 2004, but there was a lot more bitterness behind it. Sure, he was pushed as the company's #1 star within months of his debut and broke several records during his run, but the fact of the matter is that he was an extremely unhappy man behind the scenes. The full-time schedule on the road was not for Brock, who resorted to alcohol and pills to cope with the physical and mental stress. He left to take a gamble on himself and pursue an NFL career, but he fell short and went after his next best option, mixed martial arts. MMA was nowhere as popular as it was now, but he became the UFC's first true box office draw, attracting 1 million pay-per-view buys within his 3rd fight with the promotion. The fact that he became UFC heavyweight champion was the biggest credibility booster of his career, and although he retired from MMA in 2011, he made his way back to WWE a few months later. Because he was a certified box office megastar, he got to dictate the terms of his contract like nobody before him has. To date, there isn't a superstar that had Vince McMahon throw the vault to get a signature. While the last 10 years of his run haven't been perfect, there are a lot of memorable moments to look back on, and the Beast Incarnate has steamrolled his way into becoming the most dominant superstar in WWE history. Who else do you think had a better second run in WWE? Jeff Hardy? Chris Jericho? William Regal? Let us know in that comment section down below.